Court reporters hold one of the most important roles in the justice system. We're entrusted with the official records of the courts, and we also have to run our own businesses, which is not something most of us were prepared for. I'm Bryn Seymour, freelance court reporter and life coach, and I invite you to join the discussion about the problems we face and the solutions we create on the unique journey of a stenographer.
Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Court Reporter Podcast.
Today on the Entrepreneurial Court Reporter Podcast, we have a master certified steno and voice reporter. Welcome, Tori Pittman. So when I was recording her intro, I was reading all the letters next to her name, and I had to reach out to her and ask if she can list them out and write them out because I really didn't know what all of them were. So of course I knew what BA and RDR are. BA is Bachelor of Arts and RDR is Registered Diplomat Reporter, but she also is FAPR, which stands for Fellow of the Academy of Professional Reporters, which is a nomination by peers. She's also a CRV-CM-M Certified Verbatim Reporter, Certificate of Merit, Master from NVRA. The M is for the 225, 250, 300 words per minute at 97% accuracy. The RCP is Registered Cart Provider from NVRA. The CVR-CM is now speed equivalent to RPR-RMR. And then CRI is Certified Reporting Instructor from the NCRA. Wow, I didn't know all of these letters, what they meant and what they stood for. I just know the general NCRA certifications, but she's gone above and beyond, so this is awesome. All right, so Tori Pittman is passionate, vivacious, effervescent, unconventional. If you've ever met her, you will probably think of these adjectives to describe her. She absolutely loves the court reporting profession, as you can tell from all the letters she has after her name. Also, if you just have a conversation with her, you can tell how much she loves this profession. Since the early 90s, Tori has been an active participant in the court reporting field, whether volunteering for a committee, serving in leadership, speaking at a convention, doing CAT trainings, or presenting seminars to law students. She loves giving back to the profession that has offered her incredible working and traveling experience over the past 30 years. As I stated before, she's master level certified in both steno and voice writing, and she's also spent a little bit of time challenging herself in state, national, and international speed competitions. But her favorite part of being a professional court reporter is the ability to help new reporters enter and excel in this amazing career. Mentoring and teaching help her share her passion with the next generation of reporters. Inspiring new reporters and seeing those light bulb moments make her smile even wider than usual. When not on the record herself or scoping one of her clients' transcripts, you can find her reading a book, at a wine tasting in one of the Yadkin Valley wineries, or out on the hiking trails in the foothills of the Blue Ridge, the area that she and her husband and 2 orange cats now call home after relocating in the fall of 2021. If you want to see photos of her experiences in any of these categories, you can find her Instagram handle in the show notes. Why don't you tell us a brief summary of you?
That's terrifying. My name is Tori Pittman, and I have been affiliated with the court reporting profession since 1990, when I answered an ad in the newspaper for an office manager position, and it ended up being for a freelance court reporting business in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I ended up being the first person to pass their entry tests in 6 months, and it was a spelling, a vocabulary, a typing, and a punctuation test. So I got the job, and after about 2 years, I decided I wanted to learn how to be a scopist. And then after another 6 years of that, I decided I wanted to go to court reporting school. So I went to the steno school here in North Carolina. It's no longer in business, but I did graduate. It took me a little bit longer than usual, but I say it's because cancer made me take a detour. I basically was going through my cancer treatment during my internship. So my last day of radiation treatment, I passed my last 225. And then
Wow.
I started freelance reporting in 1999, and I developed tendonitis in 2004. And so I decided to cross-train, and I got my my RDR and my merit in voice the same year. And after that, I got my CRI, the Certified Reporting Instructor. And I stayed being a freelance reporter, didn't do a lot, so my tendonitis didn't necessarily sideline me directly. I ended up getting a job offer to work in the state court system in the North Carolina Business Court. And I did that job for about 3.5 years. I was actually able to work both in the business court and in criminal court. And that's where I did a little bit of steno and a little bit of voice. I did civil work and steno and criminal work and voice. I left the state's employ in 2011 and have been freelance ever since, almost exclusively voice. I blew out my arms officially in 2012. And I have been doing mentoring since about 2001. And here I am living in the North Carolina mountains. We moved here in the fall of 21, and I'm doing almost exclusively scoping with an occasional depot or hearing thrown in. And I do mentoring and training on Eclipse Cat software, and I love it. I really enjoy the freedom.
All right, so that's awesome. Okay, so before I ask you about your business, I want to ask you for a fun fact about you. It could be your favorite hobby, your favorite food. Just tell us something that we don't know.
Oh gosh, well, everybody knows so much about me since I share so much on Facebook. A fun fact, I broke my leg when I was 9 years old, and I spent 11 weeks in the hospital in traction. So I missed the beginning of my 4th grade year, and we literally were changing schools. So I didn't have any friends until I got to school. I didn't know anyone at that school. So,
wow, that is, you've been through a lot.
I've done a lot. I broke my arm too in 2017 as a machine writer. You know, you don't want to break your arm.
No, you do not.
But as a voice writer, I was able to get back to work in less than 4 weeks. So.
Wow. So did you get into voice writing because of that, or you were already a voice writer?
No, I developed tendonitis after about 5 years working as a freelancer. And I decided, because North Carolina is one of the states that doesn't really care. We don't have a licensure status, and we've got about 50-50. I had a lot of friends in voice, and I just asked them to help me kind of develop my skill, because I had a feeling that I wanted to be prepared in case my arms eventually did give out on me.
Right. We rely a lot on our hands, our arms, our fingers. I don't know what I would do without it. I saw in your course that you have a section about, I went through it before our interview to prepare for questions that I had about the course. I was kind of just looking at it as if, as a potential student who might want to sign up, because like I said, if I had found this, well, first of all, let me ask you, how long has this been available?
It just went live on Cyber Monday. So just a little over 6 weeks. And it's the end of the year. So we've had a little bit of action on it, but I'm getting ready to do some serious marketing, and I need to add a couple more units on here, but I wanted to get something up and running. So this has been about 6 weeks.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask, why haven't I heard of this earlier? Because this is something that is so needed, I feel, for the life of freelance court reporters, because a lot of the things that I talk about are how unprepared we were for running a business. Even if we're not running a business, even if we don't consider ourselves entrepreneurs or business owners or agency owners, we still have to figure out a lot about taxes and bookkeeping and like incorporating and all these things about running a business. And it's a lot more than we expected. So I see that there are 7 different modules in the course. And for anyone who wants to follow along, you can go to what do they?
It's beyond225.teachable.com. And actually, Bryn, your reaction is what I found over the past 20-something years mentoring. Most of the people that I've mentored really didn't know what to expect. They knew kind of how to put a transcript together, but they didn't know what they didn't know. They didn't know what to charge. They didn't know how to get work. They didn't know, how to save for taxes at the end of the year, what expenses they could have. And so this was my CRI paper. This idea of the business of court reporting was actually what I wrote in 2005 for my CRI. And every single teacher that was at my presentation was like, we have to have this class. This has to happen. And it kind of just sat there because other things were happening in my world. It wasn't high on my priority list at the time. But this past summer, one of my mentors and someone who is a leader in the education side of court reporting passed away. And I felt very strongly that she would have wanted me to do this. And so I said, okay, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to buckle up. And I hired my favorite videographer. And I said, I need your time. I need you to run through and help me, build these videos because I want them to be professional. And I feel very strongly that, we are professionals and people hire us to do what we are good at. And so we should hire people who are good at what they do. So I hired my favorite videographer. I had my web designer help me get the Teachable platform up and running. And then it was a matter of getting all the videos done. And all but one of the chapters has captioning. And I didn't realize I hadn't put the captioning on the last chapter. But yeah, this is a program that's meant to be not just for someone who is just getting out of school, but I'm hoping to also bring in folks who maybe need a refresher. And also I've got 2 or 3 units that I'm working on about voice writing because I know there's a lot of questions out there. So I've got one for people who are interested in transitioning from steno to voice, the kinds of things to think about. And then I've got
a separate course.
It's going to be a different unit within Teachable. So right now
we exist yet.
Yeah, it's in process. I'm literally in the middle of building that PowerPoint. So it's not going to be quite the same. It's not going to be videography like these first 7 units are. So unit 8 is the transition from steno to voice. And then unit 9 is going to be one of the programs I give at the voice sessions are a steno swap. So it's, how like when you go to a convention and you do a steno swap in steno, what is your brief for this? We're going to be doing something similar for voice. And, I've got a couple other things that I'm thinking about. And, one of the things long-term that I'd like to do is something similar to what you're doing right now is to have like anyone who has been registered for my program do a once a month kind of a Zoom. Let's talk about it. Ask me some topics and let's go ahead and brainstorm and talk about it. So we've got a few things still waiting in the wings to come live.
Okay, so we have a question from Taylor. She wants to know if you can earn NCRA CEUs with your courses.
So not on the original units. I haven't applied. If there is a desire, I can look to see how much it would cost me to do that. I tried to make the pricing really inexpensive so it would be accessible to so many people. But the ones that are going to be PowerPoint presentations, I do plan on applying for because of the format. They're a little bit easier to send off to the national associations. The original 7 units, there's no uniformity to length. And I know that both national associations do require a minimum time length. And I don't know that I have enough time in any of those units to make it work.
Okay.
But
and each module is, so basically for everyone who's not familiar, there are 7 different modules and the website we posted in the chat is beyond225.teachable.com. And so it's 7 different modules. 1 is what is a court reporter, 2 is business practice, 3 is best practices, 4 is the stuff for your business, 5 is realistic expectations for scoping and transcription. So basically all about production. And 6 is associations, and 7 is practice and certification. So, and each one is $100. Is that correct?
the last 2, Unit 6 and Unit 7, are $50 each. And I've made it such that if you buy all 7 units, you actually save $100. Basically, you're getting Unit 6 and 7 for free, because by the end it's like $600. But if you buy the bundle, it's $500. And each or several of the units also have like little handouts, little forms. For example, let me see if I can find one here.
Yeah, like a worksheet type of thing.
There's like worksheets or suggestions. So I have a copy of a blank rate sheet, and I have a list of questions if you're going to be interviewing at an agency or in a courthouse, questions to think about asking.
And just so you know, over the past 5 years of being a court reporter, I have, well, especially more in the past year or 2, I've been really investing a lot in myself to, I believe in investing in ourselves to get the answers that we need that school didn't prepare us for. And so I have purchased courses after courses. Like I've done a lot of things like to try to figure out like myself and what's holding me back from reaching my potential, knowing how much potential I have as a court reporter who finished school in 14 months and has this talent of writing on the machine very, very quickly. I know that I have potential. I write clean, but like for some reason, I'm just not like doing what I know I could do. And so I have invested in lots of courses, and I've paid a lot of money for these self-improvement things. And so I kind of maxed myself out, and I'm putting a limit, and I'm no longer going to be like purchasing anything unless I have made every effort to get it for free. But so, I mean, I would love to ask you questions about like specifics inside of the courses. Maybe you can give a little bit of like a preview or explain like why it's worth purchasing and why it's different from what we learned in school and different from what we learned from like our mentors and things like that.
Yeah, and so I'm sitting here in my admin unit, and for some reason, of course, it's not showing up that I can pull it. This is one of the things that, for me, teachable, again, technology is not my favorite thing. So I am going to go back to the view courses section. So the what is a court reporter is more along the lines of, yeah, you went to court reporting school, but what are you expected to do? And it's got things like the oath and how to give an oath, because not everybody was taught, how to actually make that work. There's another one about interrupting and what is the type of interruption that is important to do right in the moment versus, get a spelling, and then perhaps ways to phrase it. And if anyone has any experience, if you ever took any of Anita Paul's sessions, rest in peace, she used to say, don't say I'm sorry. When you interrupt, don't say I'm sorry, because you're not sorry. You're literally saying, I need to do this. This is my job. So excuse me, please repeat, or whatever. And I think that is important to know and to practice how to do. I have another section on how do you mark exhibits? Where do you mark exhibits? How is the process of marking exhibits?
Okay, so before you move on, I have a question about the interrupting. So, because that's definitely something that I've always wondered, because I know that it's important, like we need to protect the record. We need to get an accurate record. That's our responsibility. And I can't, we are trained on that in school. Like it's a known fact that it's an important responsibility that we have. But there's also this hesitation because a lot of times you actually just miss it because you're a little behind, and you can fill it in later with the audio or something. Like sometimes I do drop a few things here and there, but I know that like I don't need to interrupt every single thing that I miss, because and then there's always like that hesitation, because what is the right time to actually interrupt, and what's the right time to wait?
So this isn't necessarily 100% talked about in terms of how do I know. I talk about when they're over speaking and you just can't hear, right? When they're really fighting and you cannot hang on. So I think that's where you're talking about. What is the difference between I'm just trailing and I missed the end of the last two words versus there's just too much and I can't get it all because y'all are yelling and you're going too fast. And I do talk about also what is too fast. You don't want to say you're going too fast, right? Because we're certified at 200 words a minute. It's more about understanding, and I guess this comes from experience, about understanding what you just articulated. What do I know that I can get? And a lot of times we are writing and we think, oh my gosh, I need to interrupt. And then all of a sudden, like 10 seconds later, oh, that's what he said. It's more of somebody coughed, somebody interrupted, somebody shuffled papers, and there's no way I heard it. I just didn't hear it, or they are out of control and I need to stop. And I don't know if there's any way to quantify it, except for every situation is different. But what I try to say is you have to gauge. You have to know what you just said. Is it because I'm trailing and I'm just 2 words behind, or is it because they have literally gone off the rails and I just can't hang on anymore? And one of the things I do say is, don't interrupt all the time, because that's going to be on you. If you're interrupting all the time, it's probably speed, in which case you might need to focus on your speed practice a little bit more. But it's practice too. It's It's how to interrupt. It's not just when to interrupt. It's a lot of people, and I'm sure especially newer reporters, they get so freaked out, they go, ah, and you can't do that, obviously. You can't have that reaction.
What I would do is like not say anything, and then, or I would try to get in the habit of interrupting, and then later I'd be like listening to the audio and I'd be like, that was really dumb for me to interrupt at that time, because it's so obvious what was said based on the context. But because I wasn't fully present in like what was actually being said, I was more just like thinking about something else and typing the words down. That's the reason I missed it. And then it sounds so dumb to interrupt at that time, but that's probably just my own problem. I do have ADHD, so maybe that's why. But I mean, I feel like that happens often.
I do think that is a thing. And I did mention it, and I'm not sure if it's in this section or not, but one of the things I mentioned is, like you said, stay in the moment. I see so many court reporters trying to multitask while they're on the record. They're answering phone calls, well, not phone calls, but texts, or responding to messages. I can't do that. I have to focus. I don't know that I was necessarily diagnosed with it, but I definitely am like you. I'm like, I flip.
I think everyone has a little ADHD, right?
Right. I mean, we all are so distractible that I tell all my clients.
I mean, especially if it's so boring.
Right. And I was in the business court, talk about boring, right? We're talking about contracts, and numbers. But so I usually tell everybody, leave your phone on silent and turn it upside down. Don't get distracted by it. Then when you go on break, and I do talk about, what happens at break, make sure you're the first one back. And that's when you respond to your messages, to your emails. And one of the things I do say, and I think it's in best practice, it's about setting your parameters for when you're going to respond to emails and phone calls. I think a lot of us try to be responsive immediately, and we don't have to be. You can train your clients to understand that the best time for them to reach you is between 7 and 8 in the morning, or after 6 o'clock at night, because I'm on the record. And I suggest, when you have a voicemail, to say, listen, I'm on the record. I'll be glad to return your call at such and such a time. And I think it's a really good time management tool, but it's also a responsiveness tool. You don't want people thinking that you're ignoring them, but the record that you're in is the most important record right now. So it's how do you balance that? And it's trying to delineate where you can take the time to respond, and one of the things I say is, don't do this while you're driving in your car, because invariably somebody's going to call and book you for a deposition, and you will forget to write that deposition down, and then you won't show up, and then it's going to be bad. So if we can get into the habit of, responding at certain times, and maybe you put that in the footer of your email, or maybe in your voicemail, or even in your text. Like I know in certain apps that says, I'm driving, I can't respond because I'm driving. Surely you should be able to do that on your text messages. On the record, we'll respond at such and such a time, or whatever. But I think that is a really important thing in terms of, we do want to be responsive, but we also want to be present, like you mentioned.
Mm-hmm. And I think also that's a good reason to get help and build a team. Mm-hmm. We cannot be the ones that try to do everything, because that just leads to burnout and overwhelm. And I mean, even the hours you mentioned were like from 6 to 8 in the morning, right? Did you say 6 to 8 in the morning?
I think I said 7 to 8 in the morning, and then after 6 at night. But yeah, okay. I mean,
but that makes a very long workday.
Absolutely. One of the sections I have in the business practice one is working with the professionals, and it's got to do with accountants and lawyers and IT people and insurance agents. And then I also have another one in the as opposed to business practices, I also have best practices. And the best practices, develop a working relationship with your scopist, with a proofreader, really take the time before you need them. And I think that is really crucial, because I see so many people advertising, looking for, oh my gosh, I've got a rough draft or a rush, and I need help right now. And they're just throwing it out there to the universe, and you have no idea what you're going to get. And I suggest for everybody to go ahead and interview those support people before you need them, and, let them know who you are, what type of work you're going to be looking for. And then that way they're ready. You know who they are, and you can say, hey, I've got this rough draft. Can you help me? And, hopefully they'll be able to slide right in, how much money you're going to be paying for that service, because you've also got a rate sheet from them, which is another one of my best practices tips. You should have a rate sheet. You should also have a subcontract agreement with not only the agencies that you're working with, but also your subcontractors that you're working with. So there's just a lot of little things in here that they don't necessarily teach you in school, but they may have, and you just forgot because we're so focused on getting the words and getting the speed.
Now, is there like a one-on-one aspect where they can reach out and ask you questions or talk to you about some of the things that maybe didn't go in as much detail as they wanted?
Yeah, so one of the things that I'm going to be offering is coaching. And it's just like my training is an hourly fee. I am happy to do coaching to anybody. I haven't set up the help desk in terms of, reach out and, ask this message, but you can reach out to me via email from the platform, and I don't have a problem answering questions as long as it's not like going into an entire, another lecture, but I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay. Monica asked, which course is recommended for experienced reporters with over 10 years of experience looking for guidance to go out on their own? So
yeah, I think those are probably going to be 2, 3, and 4. So the stuff for your business it's more setting up your office space and developing your forms, getting work and outreach. That's a good one. And then obviously the business practice one, which is working with professionals, making sure you have your accountant lined up, as I mentioned, your insurance agent, your lawyer. If you are going to go out and market, having a web presence, working with those folks. And then Unit 3, the best practices. This is going to be things like developing the contracts and setting up your rate sheets and just basically organizing your form for your office. So those would be the 3. I don't think anyone who's got 10 years really needs the realistic expectations for scoping and transcription. But yeah, I think 2, 3, and 4 probably would be the best for someone who's got a little bit more experience.
Awesome. Okay. So that's great. Thank you so much for answering that question. And Monica, if that was helpful, or if you need any more clarification, please let us know. But yeah, this seems like a great deal to, get a head start on starting a business or getting a push on if you've already started your business and you just want to talk about like incorporating. And I know I saw something about insurance.
Yeah. So section 2 is all of the people. And that was the thing that I saw that a lot of people didn't know. And even to this day, someone who may have 10 years of experience, if an agency sends you a contract, do you just sign it, or do you take it to your attorney and have them help you redline it? So yeah, insurance. Do you have errors and omissions insurance, professional liability? Do you have, medical insurance for disability in case you break your arm like I did? Just the little things that we don't think about and that might not necessarily be covered in court reporting school. I do talk about lawyers and contracts, incorporating, also accountants, to let you know the difference between being an LLC or a sub-S corporation and what are the benefits either way. I talk about who else? Lawyers, insurance agents, accountants, IT and web professionals. Insurance agents, obviously, with what about your liability insurance and what about your equipment? Are you covered for that? Because if it leaves your house, is it covered on your homeowners? Lots of people we need to know.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now my question for you is: you said that you primarily focus on scoping now?
Yes.
And do you run a scoping business?
No, I just have my own clients. I really don't, it's not my, I've never trained another scopist except for my husband. And he'd never worked for me. He was going to work for me and then he never did. But there are a couple of scoping programs out there. I don't want to, if I'm trying to articulate this well and it's not working. If a court reporter hires me to be their scopist, then I want to be their scopist. I want them to know that I'm doing the work. And I don't want to have a scoping company, because then that means I would be farming out the work. And I don't think that's fair unless the court reporter knows that that's what they're getting. But how do you know with consistency? I mean, do you get to choose which of the scopists? So no, I don't have a scoping agency. I scope for one court reporter primarily, and I fill in when she's slow with 2 or 3 others who kind of slide in.
Okay.
My first love is scoping. I love puzzles. I love dictionary building. That's the sweet spot for me. I mean, I love court reporting. Don't get me wrong. I really enjoyed it. I had my own agency for 10 years in Raleigh. And then in 2021, my husband is retired law enforcement, and COVID pretty much, took my travel away from me. And so we started traveling locally, and we're mountain people. And we found a place in the mountains of North Carolina, just south of the Blue Ridge. And I left. I told my clients, I'm going to miss you guys, but I'm not going to report anymore, because I'm over 3 hours away from where I was running my business. And it was pretty much a clean break. And I did not have anyone take it over. I did give a couple of names to my clients and say, these are court reporters who I believe have similar business ethics to me. And I hope that, you can find someone you like working with. I'm assuming they have. I haven't heard anybody say that, they need another referral. So, but yeah, I really enjoy the flexibility that scoping gives me. Aside from owning a business, I always felt like, and I love my clients, don't get me wrong, but I always felt like I was on call for them, at their beck and call.
Mm-hmm.
I had only about 7 lawyers that I worked for, but they were really, really high energy, big deal business lawyers. And it was very stressful. And it was really nice to not have to be there at the drop of a hat because somebody forgot to, book a deposition, or, oh, by the way, we need this right now. And I was the one in charge of doing it. It's so nice to say, I'm going to get up at, 9 o'clock in the morning and scope for, 3 or 4 hours and then go for a hike.
Did you have a team of other court reporters that also helped you, but you had to do the scheduling and the coordinating and everything?
So yes and no. I actually tried to let my clients know that, as soon as you've got something on the calendar, call me, because you want me, right? And so they generally did not double book me, but I did have a couple of reporters that I did have on subcontract that would cover for me if I could get them quickly enough. So it was a matter of the communication that I really do stress in a couple of my sections here. Communication is a big deal, not just with your people that you work with in terms of your scopist and your proofreader, but also with your clients, whether it's the agency or the court or with your attorney clients. So the more information, the sooner, the more likely it is they're going to get me on the calendar.
Got it. Okay. So it was mostly just like you providing the services to clients, but you wanted to make it an official business by having a website and by marketing and by doing your best service for these 7 attorneys.
Yeah. So the reason
mainly you.
It was mainly me, and it was meant to be also if someone was looking for a court reporter in the Raleigh area. I don't mind taking a one-off from out of state. I was totally fine with that. I was looking to develop my court reporting persona, and some of y'all here know who I am. And so I have, lots of different irons in the fire, if you will. So the Pittman stenography, the court reporting page has one style of information, and then my steno traveler has a different type of information, and then my Tori Pittman has another. So I was trying to brand the different kinds of opportunities or offerings that I had, and I just wanted it to be professional looking. I want people to reach out to me and offer me a deposition. I actually got an offer of a deposition here in my new hometown. It was crazy, but I'm in the middle of nowhere. And someone, I need a court reporter in Dobson, North Carolina. I'm like, hey, I can do that. So it's about marketing and being available. And I was totally fine with, even if I only, got one hit a year, it was fine. It was more the exposure. So
Taylor asks, how soon do you recommend a reporter to hire a scopist?
Yeah, so that's actually in Unit 5. And I do talk about that. And I say, depending on how many pages you're doing, that's probably going to be your metric. But I say somewhere between 3 and 6 months, because I really think you need to build your dictionary. You need to be able to see what you're dropping, what's messy, and work on cleaning that stuff up. And the only way to learn is to actually edit your own stuff. So then, after about 6 months, probably you've got a really good handle on the things that have been added to your dictionary, and you can start working with a scopist. Now, that said, if you're going out, and doing 500 pages a week and editing it all, I don't know how you're doing that if you're reporting it and editing it, but okay. If you're able to do that, then you're right. Then you've probably done a lot of that work, and maybe you can get that sooner. But the thing that I always say is, again, find the people ahead of time, and then you can kind of ease them in. If you've got 500 in this week, give them 100. Feel them out, see how they do. Do they use Lillian Morson's or do they do Margie Wells? Do they have the right, are they in the same CAT software? That's huge. I got people who are scoping for case CAT people in Eclipse or vice versa. I'm like, that's a lot of work, because you got to, go back, and I wouldn't do it.
I saw that you unmuted.
I'm happy to chime in. I repeat everything Tori says, but then also I think one of my personal goals before I hand something off to a scopist is to try to get the title pages set up. Not necessarily my cert. I personally like to add my cert. I know people have offered to do it, but I'm like, it's my eyes on it. I don't have the cert until I've looked through it and it's back in my hands. But I try to set up the title pages, and sometimes, I mark spots, check or whatever. And if it's a long depot, it's really hard to go through every single check. But I do try to look for NTRANs just briefly, even if I'm just scan stopping and looking for NTRANs, and just try to define as much as I can if it's appropriate to always be building that dictionary. Because, and I know Tori will agree, but like even at 3 to 6 months when it might be appropriate for you to start giving some stuff to scopists and proofreaders, it's not like you're done. If you're still working towards real time, then and you're never done as a real time reporter. So just add. So to that point, like if you can even take 10 minutes of just combing the transcript real quick, and there might only be a few untrans, and then that's a great day and you ship it off to your scopist. But if you can take 10 minutes and just define as much as you can, if you think it's appropriate, and then send it. And I know, that's 10 minutes though, but I'm like, in the big scheme of things, you're still saving all of the scoping time, and it's so worth it for the longevity of your reporting, real-time reporting career.
I can't tell you how many times I've said in my mind at the end of a depot, I mark the spots, and I'm intending to go back and do those 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And then time passes, and I'm like, I have to just I need to send Natalie ASAP. Yeah.
It happens.
So bad, but
no, it definitely, I do it too, and we're not perfect, and that's okay,
Exactly.
but you can do it whenever you think to do it. Like, try to get it in there.
That's why it's so important to have a scopist you actually trust and does a good job. I'm sorry, Tori, were you going to try?
I was going to respond to your comment about dictionary work. I scope for a reporter who I mentored when she was at about she was at 140, and she switched from Case Cat to Eclipse. And so I have built her dictionary. And so what I do on every job is I create what I call my update dictionary. I'm not messing with hers. I'm going in, and every time I make a global, it goes into that update dictionary. I send that to her, and that way she can decide if she wants to add it or not add it. So that is my value add as a scopist. And I like what you say, Lauren, but I have a different take on doing title pages. And I actually bring this up. For me, I don't like to do title pages when I'm scoping. I don't want to look at that. I don't have your notice. I don't know what's in there. I don't want to be responsible. And if you only send me the text, when you have it and you have however many jobs in your queue at any given time, you can look at this text file and know that it hasn't been proofread yet because it doesn't have the title pages on it. So it could be a good mnemonic cue. That's just the way I work. I only want the words. I don't want to be responsible for filling in any blanks. I don't want to look at, the caption, because I may not have the notice. I may not have all the appropriate information. But I think, this is, again, the realistic expectations. I bring this up. What do you want from your relationship with each of these people? And I think that's important for a reporter to really think about as they're out there, because nobody knows unless you ask, right? Your scopist doesn't know what you need. What's your, preference sheet? Do you have one? It's the little details. Like, you don't want to go back in and put on all those commas that someone took out, even though you wrote them. That would be horrible.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
for
happened
sure.
too.
And Tori, I would say like it's so good to hear your perspective as a scopist. I think as a reporter who's sending it, and I know obviously you play both sides, but as a reporter who's sending something off, especially to a new scopist, I try to give them as much information as possible. And so like even in those title pages, knowing that those appearances are there, and then who's all the players in the game and who even they work for. Because sometimes even when it's like for such and such defendant, you know, for this company, then sometimes that company name will come up and they might not have that spelling otherwise, and I might have forgot to give it to them. So I just think like as much information as I can give them that isn't creating extra work for me. Now I tell them they are not, my expectation is that they're not responsible for filling anything if it's wrong. They've, you know, I will handle all of that, but I just try to give them the info as much as possible. So that way it cuts down on communication for us. So,
no, and I think that's fair. That's totally fair, as long as the expectations are laid out at front, you know, and I agree with you. I mean, a lot of times my reporter won't send me the notice and I have no idea what law firm it is. So now I have to go Google it, which is fine, because that's my job as a scopist. I'm going to go Google this law firm and I'm going to say, I think this is the firm, but I don't have the notice. So
right. Yeah, totally. And I do try to send the notice too. I just also try to get it into the transcript for my sake, because I want it to be done when it comes back and I'm not like, crap, I still have to do that. You know, so that's for me just as much as it is for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I created the system with Natalie, my scopist, where I just upload all the info, the caption, the appearances, and like everything that I've received. And if something's missing, she has to chase me down for it. Because like as soon as I'm done with my job, I want it like out of sight, out of mind until I'm needed in the process. But even I trained her to fill in like all that stuff for, you know, a monthly like management fee. Like she charges like a monthly rate for that, but to me it's worth it. I really don't like having so many little details to keep track of every job.
This is actually one of the things I talk about, and I can't remember which. I think it's in Unit 4 of this stuff, talking about budgets and really figuring out what are your expenses. And I think, you know, having someone manage your transcripts is a really good idea. If you want to have someone, that second set of eyes or that manager when you're out reporting, to just kind of have a hand in to say where things are, but then it's also all your subscriptions and your internet and, you know, your cell phone, all the things, your dues. I think a lot of times newer reporters have no idea what to expect in terms of a budget, and they don't know how much money they have to make on a given week or a given month. And if you start with a list of these are the things that you might have to pay for, Dropbox or ShareFile or Stenovate, you know, one of these products, you know, they're gonna tally up, and you don't want to wait until December and then realize, oh my gosh, I have to pay my CAT software and it's $800 and it's Christmas. You know, if you have an idea of what your budget is, and, you know, court reporters, we just got out of 2 years of school. We haven't been earning any money. We don't even know what we need to buy, right? So here's a list. Get an idea and then figure out how much, and then we go back into the realistic expectations. How many pages can you do an hour? How many pages can you do a week? How much money does that equal? How much money do you have to pay for all your bills? It's a lot. And a lot of times, you know, recent graduates just don't have a way to quantify that.
That's true. I was just, so going back to what you were talking about earlier about, you mentioned preference sheets. Lauren had sent me a link to Stenovate, because Stenovate, I'm sure we'll be on the podcast with Lauren for an episode all about Stenovate. I am on Stenovate. It's a great tool for managing all the stuff that we're talking about. And so I'm going to send it out right now if everybody can see it. But yeah, she has like a template. Is it a template of the preference sheet in there?
It's a quiz, and it is a long quiz. It's like almost 100 questions, I want to say. But then you just roll through the questions, and a lot of them you're going to be like no brainer. Like it's the way you've been doing things for a long time. You just want to communicate those things to your scopist and proofreader. So you go through the quiz, and then we actually email you that preference sheet in a Word document, which means it's editable. So you guys then, like, if you have other things that you want to add to it, or you change your mind at some point, you're like, what? I don't like this anymore. Now I want to do it this way. You can go ahead and change it and save it, and then share that with your scopist and proofreader. And it's nice for you to have ownership of one instead of filling out 7 different scopists. their version, because a lot of them have one and they're like, oh, can you fill this out for me? And then you can respond and say, guess what, I already have one, here you go. And it saves you time at the end of the day. And a lot of scopists and proofreaders, because it's been such a popular free tool, a lot of people are using it, so it's becoming kind of universal. And then when the scopists and proofreaders get familiar with, okay, I want to know how they do their comma, they tend to know like the questions where to go look for those things, because it's the same quiz that all the court reporters are taking. So that comes in really handy.
Yeah, I think it's definitely important. And I think, Tori, you probably have some courses on like established, because we need to, as business owners, we need to have our preferences established, our rates established, and we need to decide those things for ourselves rather than letting other companies determine how much they're going to pay us or what our preferences should be. Like, we should just have it ready, and that will save us so much time in the future.
I know I have one in best practices, and
yeah, it's in the stuff for your business.
Is the stuff for your business? Yeah, there you go. Stuff for your business. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, where can everyone read?
Beyond 225 at protonmail.com.
Proton. If anyone does purchase a course, please let us know. We would love to hear.
And I would like feedback. I would love feedback. Tell me what I missed, what you'd like me to add to the courses, because I'm totally amenable to adding new sections. Not a problem.
And if you have questions about the content inside the course, post it on the Facebook group, because I'm sure all of us would benefit from hearing the answers. You know, everyone who's running a court reporting business is doing a great job. It's not easy. We're all stressed sometimes and going through things and trying to figure everything out. But what really helps me, and I think it's a really powerful thing, is gratitude. Like finding something, like every situation and every circumstance could have a negative and it could also have a positive way to look at it, but like just generating those positive thoughts about why we're thankful for our businesses, how much flexibility it gives us, like all the different things that are good about running a business. When we generate those thoughts, it makes us feel happy, and then in turn allows the business to grow. So any last thoughts you want to add, Tori or Lauren or anyone who's here?
I just want to say thank you for inviting me to participate and, having this informational kind of a setting. I think it's really important. As you say, we are all entrepreneurs, even though we didn't necessarily plan it.
Exactly.
To all the podcast listeners, this podcast is growing, and I want to offer you an amazing opportunity to be a part of the team. Managing a podcast is kind of like freelance court reporting. There are a lot of small pieces to manage, and if you know me, you know I'm all about delegation and working together. Because you know what they say, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. So if you're interested in helping out with things like transcription, show notes, copywriting, marketing, engagement, head over to courtreporterconnection.com and navigate to opportunities, and then you can apply there.